So hi, I'm David. I am an author of the app Settle Up. It started as my diploma thesis on university, actually. And I was working for it for many years. Now it's turned into startup. I'm working on it full time. And a year ago, almost exactly a year ago, we have released a completely redesigned Android app of Settle Up, with new backend, new design, new everything. And this talk will be retrospective, like a year later, what we would have done differently with some lessons learned for you, for your apps, what you can learn from our fails and wins. And it will not be just code, but it will be also UX-based. It will be also about monetization a lot, so it's like a nice mix. So just quickly, I'm the Google Developer Expert for Android. Recently, I also became a Google Developer Expert for Google Pay. There is a big push for Google Pay now. I'm founder of my own company, and I work on the Android app. So let's talk about design first. Any designers here? UX people? Yeah? Great. So because I'm working on this app for so long, this wasn't the first redesign. We always tried to match the design to best practices of that era. And as you will see, there was many design eras in Android. So first, 2011, this is the first prototype of the app. I did this in 2 weeks. While I was on the university, and Android Froyo was popular at that time. Not many people had Android. It was more like geeky thing, and at that time it was like Wild Wild West. There wasn't many apps on the store, so like everybody just tried to put the app on the store and like get some reviews, get some traction. Like nobody cared much about design. But popular design patterns were Action Bar, which is on the top. It's still used until to this day, and this grid of icon was called dashboard pattern. So this was all the rage, and I just downloaded this icon somewhere on the internet and like do it really quickly. So first major redesign came with Android Gingerbread. Back then, it was popular this idea of skeuomorphism. So it came from iOS. iOS apps were skeuomorphic. That means they try to look like real life objects. So for us, we chose leather. So the iOS app is even more skeuomorphic than this. It was all leathery. It looked like a wallet. You like stick like cards into wallet. And I tried to match the iOS design with the action bar looked like a leather. And you can see we also have some new features like online synchronization. I will talk about later. So in 2013, a big design change came. Google finally released some design guidelines. This was the first time where we had some design guidelines. So not just best practices from the community, but also from Google. And the design language at the time was called Holo. So we redesigned the app again to this Holo language. It was really simple, really flat design, and also this blue color was used a lot, so we have blue color. And we redesigned the app into multiple tabs. The dashboard pattern was deprecated at the time. Next big change came with Lollipop in 2014. So this is the birth of material design, which is still here with us today. So material design, you can see, is much more clear. I think it looks nicer. It has some bold colors, like it brought the floating action button on the right. So we redesigned it yet again. And actually, this version was on the store for many years. It was more like a hobby project. I was working in different companies. I didn't have much time for this. So this was on the store for many years, and people really got used to it. And the last redesign we made looks like this now. So this is the screenshot from current app. You can see it looks differently. We still use material design, but we are more inspired by the new material theming, which means it's material design, but with more freedom, more places how you could show your brand. So, for example, this circles are taken from the iOS app. It's something which unites the Android and iOS app, but other than that, it's pretty standard material design. But you see it's completely different than this. So this is our design journey. Now our architecture journey. So I will talk a bit about code, how we structured the app, so you can also remember the humble beginnings of Android development. So the app in the beginning was only offline. That was quite easy. So we didn't have to deal with networks. It was popular back then, like put all the code in activities. So these activities, like for simple app, it's okay. For bigger app, these activities became like a God objects, and everything is there in big spaghetti code. So that was exactly our code. For asynchronous tasks, we used this cool new API called async tasks, which is really not recommended today. And for handling orientation, I just Googled like, the activity keeps getting destroyed, what should I do? I just put this flag into the manifest, it solves all your problems. So I did that, and like it kind of worked, but it caused a lot of other problems with like saving state, and we couldn't have different layout on different orientations, stuff like that. But that's how we did it in 2011. So the next rewrite came with online synchronization. I created my own backend on App Engine, and with my own REST API. I didn't find any synchronization libraries on the market that time, so like I had to create my own synchronization logic. It's quite complex thing to do. It's really hard to do it, especially on unstable mobile connection when the connection drops at the worst times. But I did it. Then about activities, so best practice there was because the new fragments just came, and the best practice was, okay, just split these activities into smaller chunks called fragments, and problem solved. Well, not really, because now the fragments were the God objects. For asynchronous tasks, we used loaders. They kind of work with the lifecycle, so they are better than the async tasks, but they also had a lot of weird issues. And now the final redesign. So we had problems with the synchronization, and that's why we chose the Firebase real-time database, because it handles for us the synchronization really bulletproof. Like it's proven on so many different apps on unstable mobile connection. So that's why we chose it in the first place. It's also serverless, so we don't have to hire another backend guy. It's really like the front end people can work with it really easily. And with that came a requirement for RxJava, because all the like everything is callback based in the API of real-time database, so everything is asynchronous. And also the structure of Firebase needs to be really flat. That means that like for one screen, I have to ask Firebase for like 5 different information on 5 different places, and I need to merge all of these together in a reactive way. So like if any of these things changes, the UI updates. So for this, we had to use RxJava quite a lot to merge everything together. When we started rewriting this app in 2016, we chose Kotlin. We really believed in it. It was a year ago before it was stable. It was even before it was announced on I/O on official language, and like we don't regret this decision. Really the API of Kotlin is great. We didn't have to do any like migrations. It just works. They're really good in compatibility. And for architecture, we chose MVP, which was popular back then. I will talk later about if it's good or not. So final history lesson about monetization. So how did we monetize the app in the past? So we experimented quite a lot with monetization. So on Android, it was first free, because it was just a hobby project. Then I added some donations there, buy me a beer. That works on Czech people, proven. Then it was popular at the time to create a different app, which is paid, and it doesn't do anything. It just unlocks the main app. So that's what we did. But it was kind of hassle to manage these two apps with like 2 different ratings, and it's also hard for the users. So when in-app purchases came, we replaced this with in-app purchases. We are also changing the ads there. So first we use banner ads, like on the bottom. Like they are fine, but like after time, people just stop, just don't look at the bottom. They just ignore it. So we replaced it with native ads. Native ads are in the list of your items, and they look similar to your items. So people see it more often, and they look more native to your app. And currently, our current monetization is subscriptions. And for the ads, we have interstitial ads. After you do something in the app, the user needs to see an ad. So we have this after every third expense added, we show this interstitial ad. And if you don't want it, you can buy the subscriptions, or I will talk later about other options. On iOS, it's completely different. So first, it was paid app. Then like we read all these articles like paid apps are the past, now in-app purchases are the future. So we changed it to free app with in-app purchases, and the revenue like grew, synced so much. Like we were making like 1/10 of the before. So we switched it back to the paid app. And this was actually not like my decision. I was collaborating with other developers who made the iOS app. So then they did a redesign of the iOS app, but they wanted to make some money. So they created another paid app, like a paid update. So some people complained that they have to pay twice for the app, but I guess it paid for their development of the redesign. And this is still, today we still have this new paid app, but we also are working on the redesign, and it should be exactly the same as Android. It should have interstitial ads and subscriptions, and most importantly, it should share these plans. Like if somebody buys on Android, he should also have unlocked premium on iOS and vice versa. It shouldn't be separate, because people are switching phones these days a lot. OK, so let's get to the main part, and that's the release, which happened a year ago. So first, let's talk a bit about how we got there. So our plan was to redesign it and release it in a year. We thought it's so much time, a year, like we don't have to think about new things. Like we already know the features exactly. We know what the users want. Like it must be easy, right? So it took us first 6 months to just like came up with the design, create some prototypes, talking with some users, like iterating the design so much, talking about it endlessly. So that took 6 months. Another 6 months took building the actual design, the features. So after a year, we thought we are almost done. It's just like a little bit of testing. But we were wrong. We put it to alpha. With alpha means like closed group with just like really loyal users, which maybe helped us in the past or something. So they were in the alpha. We got some feedback. We had to work on it. The alpha also didn't have migrations and monetization yet, so it was just the functionality. So we had to be in alpha for 5 months and still working on it. Then came beta. So beta was more open, that like anybody can sign up for beta on the Play Store. And we were in beta for 4 months. Beta already include migrations from all data. Didn't have monetization yet, but then we updated it with monetization. So it took twice as long as we thought, and like we were also calculating with some costs, some money, and like money were running out. so we have to release now. Otherwise, like, the company is dead. Like, we have to release now. We have been in alpha, beta for so much. It must be good. So the Big Bang came. So the new app had completely different UI than what the users were used to. Like, everything, the features were more or less the same, but everything was on different place. Also, the new Firebase requires you that you have to be online in the beginning, then it works offline, but like you have to be online in the beginning and there is mandatory login. So also our app was online and had mandatory login, and some of our users were used to using it only offline without login. Then migrations of the data from the old backend to Firebase were kind of hard, and like there were a lot of bugs. It was also a little bit less stable than the old apps. There were some crashes because like all the new code base, we haven't tested it on the whole suite of Android devices out there, just with the beta testers. We also changed the icon so people cannot find it on the grid, because the icon had different color. We also changed the name, just in Czech language, because in Czech language it was called Dlužníček. In all other languages it was called Settle Up, and we want to unify the brand. So with this update we also changed the name. So Czechs also cannot find it. When they were looking for Dlužníček, they couldn't find it. We also changed the monetization, so in-app purchases were replaced by these subscriptions. We also removed some features which were, according to our analytics, really not much used, some like obscure features. So like we removed them. We didn't want to create design and everything for them. And we didn't do any communication about the big update before the update. Like we posted something on our social media, but like not many of our like regular users read our social media. And the worst thing is that we started rolling out in like 1 month before DevFest, but then we figured out something is wrong, so we had to roll out list slowly, and the 100% rollout coincided with DevFest CZ last year when I was the main organizer. So like I was just crazy. I had to organize this event, and we had this release, so it was really hard. And this happened. So it's an average rating on Google Play Store. The red are 1 stars. And it was like a shitstorm of terrible reviews and rant emails. We got hit pretty hard. So what did we do after? So we didn't give up. Like we just don't give up, we go on, so we didn't give up. We carefully replied, or mostly me, to all the rent emails. There were these long emails like, you have to change this is wrong, this is wrong. No, I carefully replied to all the points in every email. I replied to every Play Store review which was not 5 stars, so 4 stars and less. I replied to every single one. We were also stabilizing the app. We were fixing the migrations problem with the data. We found out from the feedback that the new expense flow, which is the most important thing to do, you do this every day. So there are some serious UX issues. It takes too much clicks. People were annoyed. So we actually also our designer left before the release, so we didn't have a designer. So with developers, we had to redesign it 3 times, iterate it to like make it right. I think now it's pretty good. Like nobody complains. It's really fast. But it took us like 3 iterations in production. And we also brought some removed features. Based on the feedback, what people needed most, we brought most of them back. We also got feedback that there are some users who are willing to pay us something, but they will never pay subscriptions. Like some people are really against subscriptions. So we said, OK, we created this group premium, which is in-app purchase. But also, you don't want to cannibalize the income from subscriptions. So we created something else that it's a premium for the whole group. So not for one individual, but for everybody in a group. The nice thing about our app, that is about splitting expenses. So we could actually put this group premium into Settle Up as a shared expense. So actually just one person paid on the Play Store, but everybody in a group paid for it. So that's kind of our unique way. I think no other apps could do this, but we leverage this. And the group premiums are working really great. It's now half of our revenue on Android. And we also had the time to add some new features because the code base is new. It was quite easy to add new features. We added categories and some other stuff. So we slowly got from the review hell, and now we are almost as good as before after a year. So what's also good about this, it didn't affect much our active installs. So this is active installs on the Play Store. Here was the release. It slowed a little bit, but like nothing major, no major drops. So that's good. Reviews went down, but active installs didn't. That's more important for us. And now to some lessons learned. What you could do in your apps when you are planning such a big redesign and rewrite of the app. So please don't repeat our mistakes, and have a look at this. So when you are doing UX testing, like we did UX testing in alpha, beta, but it wasn't with regular users. It was always like self-selected people, really people who are interested into the app. Maybe they are long-time users, and they are not the regular users. So do the UX testing with regular users. The most enthusiastic people will usually tell you, yeah, it's fine. And also your friends will tell you it's fine. Don't trust your friends. So I think what you should do, you should pick random users. Maybe from your user database, you can pick them, you can send them email or notification. And it should not be self-selected. You should not just ask, hey, you want to test beta? Because just the enthusiastic users would test beta for free. You should give them something for it. You should give them some clear value. In your app, usually, what is paid, you can give them premium for some months or something. Do something valuable for them. Or you can even use Amazon codes. You can actually give them money, on Amazon or something. It's really worth it. You can also pay some regular people from the street. There are some agencies who facilitate this, that you can hire regular people. Then you can observe them. You can sit with them. You can observe how they click. It's also valuable. Or maybe better if you are not just check app, because in this you will just get check people usually. And our app is international. We have 30% of users in Spain. So we are actually not that much interested in check people. So for that, service like usertesting.com is really great. It's global, and you can select which users you want. I want Spanish users, somebody wants US users, and you can select the demographics like older people, younger people, people who have Android, people who have iPhones. You can really select the demographic, and it works like that they are at their home, clicking on the phone, doing some tasks, interacting with your app. And the screen is recorded, what they are doing, and also their voice is recorded. So they are asked to speak out loud what they are thinking, if they are stuck or something. So this is really valuable service. And it's not the only one. So as you probably figured out, don't do big bang updates like we did. Don't change anything at once. It's just too much change for the users. We are geeks, we are happy from all these changes, but regular users are not. You have to slowly prepare them. So what I would do now is I would do it gradually. So first update should just change the app icon, nothing else, and prepare the users that something is changing. Just the app icon change. Then maybe wait 2 months. After 2 months, change just the name in the Czech language. Just the name. It's quite easy to change the name. You don't need a lot of development. And then make some communication about it, that this name is changing, and prepare users slowly. Then maybe release this redesign. You cannot really redesign just one screen and different screen if you are rewriting the whole code base. It's just not possible. So, I think it's OK to release the redesign at once, but it should just the design should change, nothing else. And the last thing I would change is the monetization, because it's really sensitive to people. Like, especially if they paid something, they got really angry that they say, I gave you $2, you have to do everything for me. So this is what I would do differently. Also, what we didn't do, prepare users, especially to regular users, for the update with some communication before the update. So you can send emails with screenshots. Don't put a lot of text. Put screenshots. What's really changing into the app, and maybe link to some blog post with more details. Emails are not that expensive. If you want to save money, you can use notification campaigns. They are great because it's part of your app, this notification, so you don't have to pay for sending these notifications. Actually, Firebase has this feature, how is it called? Yeah, notification campaigns or something like that. Like, there is a new feature where when the user clicks notifications, it opens pop-up in your app with some image, with some text, with some link. So you could use this easily. Without any coding. That's nice. Or you could do it yourself. It's not that hard. It's just like one screen with some like image, text. You should, in these like campaigns, you should ask for feedback and again reward it. Just don't like write us if anything is wrong, because the regular people won't just write you, but like reward the people who provide the feedback somehow. Also, if you are cutting out an entire segment of your users, you should really provide some alternative for them. So in our case, we had a small segment of users, like 5% of users, who used the app only offline. They never logged in. And we said, 5%, who cares? But these 5% were really vocal after the update. So, like, most these people were concerned about privacy, and like we didn't have any privacy policy, and like it was really bad. And like they were right, like we should have prepared for this. So what I would have done is now I would have released the old app on the site, so like different app in the Play Store, but we didn't want to do it because we didn't want to maintain it. Like, you don't want to maintain 2 apps. It's a nightmare. But if we removed all the online features, then there is not much maintenance, actually. If it works only offline, then you don't have to update the app almost never. Because when you are forced to do updates, it's usually because some API is deprecated or Facebook login stops working because Facebook changes something. But if it's only offline, then it can work basically forever, and Android is really good in keeping compatibility with various releases. I know Tomáš Zvěřina, a speaker today, he has an app from 2010, and people are still using it in Šumava forest. So it still works. And please be extra careful with monetization changes. Like, it's really sensitive. People get really annoyed about changing monetization, especially if they paid for something. So be super generous to people who already paid you something. Even if it's just $2, be super generous. Explain them that you have this because you already paid. Show them, like, we had this problem in the beginning. We unlocked the features they paid for, but we didn't show on the premium screen that they paid for this like 3 years ago. So people were, I know, like, why am I in basic plan? I already paid for this. Like, I'm super angry now. So like be clear, be transparent that they paid for this, you know, and because they paid for this, you unlock these features. And just count, don't try to make money on these people who already paid for you. Like be generous, unlock them more than they actually paid. Just make money mostly on new users or users who didn't pay anything yet. It's really worth it. So now about technology, mostly Firebase. So always when you choose new technology like this, like we started using Firebase, we were one of the first. I was even in some early access programs before it was announced on Google I/O, this new Firebase. So like we were early adopters. And we had some fears about Firebase. So we were worried about these things, and a lot of people worry about them still today. So we were worried that we would design the database structure wrong. It's quite hard to do it correctly. So we thought we will doing wrong, and then we will have to add some new features. And we couldn't do it because the database structure is there. We are also worried that the sync won't be bulletproof. Maybe it will have some issues. We were worried about the offline functionality, that it won't work correctly. Maybe there will be some weird exchanges. Maybe it will delete all the cache in 1 week, and then people will lose data or something. Like, we're really worried. We were also worried about the cost on the server side, that like it would cost us a lot. Sometimes it's hard to estimate how much data your users will generate. If you are in Firebase real-time database, you pay for amount like gigabytes of data in the database. And all these worries were unfounded. Like everything of the things worked. So we designed the database structure good, and even with some new features, we are just adding some parameters. We don't have to change the entire structure. It really works well. We don't have any problems with that, migrations of data. The synth is really bulletproof. Like nobody complained that something got duplicated or deleted. Synth really works. It's tested. It works offline, great, and it saves us so much code. Before we had all this SQLite handling of data, and now there is just one line of code. You just say like offline enabled true. It works offline. After people sign in for the first time, then it works offline. And the cost is not that high. Right now we are paying $60 a month. And it saved us so much on the hiring side. Like I don't need a backend developer. I would have to pay so much more to backend developer than $60 a month. So, but always the technology will surprise you. So the problems were actually somewhere else. We struggled somewhere else. So the most thing which slowed the release was the migrations. Like we thought we would do this big update. We will migrate all the data at once, and everything will be in Firebase now. We'll stop the app engine. But you cannot do that when you have like slow rollout, and the iOS version is behind. So the iOS version is still there today, and it still talks with this app engine backend via REST. So we actually had to do two-way migration in the real time. So when somebody adds new expense in Firebase, it needs to go to the app engine and duplicate. If somebody adds new expense in the app engine, it needs to go to Firebase. And both of these has different data formats, so it needs to. So that was really tricky. There were some edge cases, but we solved it. Also, Firebase brought the RxJava requirement. It was kind of complex for us. We had to learn a lot, like how to do RxJava properly. There were some bugs. Also, debugging is harder with RxJava. With the stack trace, you are lost somehow. So that also slowed things down. Also, the MVP wasn't that great, because MVP is great for like normal Java applications, but in Android, MVP doesn't know anything about lifecycle. So when something changes during the loading, or when the user is on the screen or getting a call, and there are also some weird edge cases we had to hack around in MVP. There was no standard solution yet when we started it. So let's wrap it up. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't do these big redesigns. I think they are necessary. This whole industry is changing so fast, and you have to adapt. You cannot have the old design from 2011 today. So your app needs to evolve anyway. I would, for example, today I would use some different technologies. Instead of MVP, I would use architecture components. Instead of Eric Java, I would use live data and Kotlin coroutines. Instead of real-time database, I would use Firestore. I think it's better suited to our use case. But it doesn't make sense to change this now. Like it's stable, and real-time database is not getting close. It will be here with us for many years. So it's OK. And you should expect that even if you follow all the best practices on the internet, something will always go wrong. You should be prepared that something will always go wrong. You should always react to all feedback, especially negative feedback, react to it politely. You should be transparent. Transparent to your users. Don't try to trick your users, especially into purchases. So sometimes it's tempting to manipulate users for short-term gain. Maybe if you create something short-term, you will get more revenue short-term, but really long-term hurts always. So that's it. It was still fun. I don't regret it. We learned so much. We get a lot of great feedback from the users. I don't regret it. And the whole app business is still worth it. There are much more people who have cell phone with internet than computers now. It's a huge opportunity. The app business is still worth it to do some app today. It's maybe not that easy as 2011. There are so many apps on the Play Store, but if your app is really high quality, it's still worth it. And for us, that means that we now have a passive income. About this value, 120,000 crowns per month from this app. And what's nice about it, that it's passive. I don't have to do anything, and I would still get this the next month. Maybe if I improve the app, it will increase. But it's really nice that it's passive. It's also growing. Every year, it's growing. So that's really nice. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Okay, we have time for 2 questions, so can we ask for Slido? Yeah. Yeah, okay, we have time for 2, and I was told that you want to pick, so...
Okay. Yeah, first one, sure. What about Flutter?
What about Flutter?
I'm in trouble because Philip is here. Yeah, so Flutter is really interesting. I enjoy Philip's talks. I am still native guy. I still have most experience in native. So doing everything in Flutter would be learning a lot of new stuff for the first time. I would not be that effective. Maybe for some people who are starting, Flutter is better. There are some things like the maps, which are not that polished yet, but I think I like the Flutter from all the cross-platform frameworks mostly because of the performance. The performance is best in Flutter. So it depends also on your use case. Yeah.
Yeah, and you told us a lot about what would you do differently. Oh, okay, yeah. So you're a Czech team based here. Why are you US C Corp company? Is there motivation behind?
Okay, so there are 5 different reasons. It's I would have to go more in depth. I wrote a blog post about it. Please read it on my Medium.
Okay, cool. And I think we have time for the last one. You told us a lot of the things that you would change. So can you tell us how would you inform users today that the redesign is coming?
Okay, so it was in my slides. What I would do, I would send email campaigns. I would also send notifications campaigns to users, maybe 2 months before, and also reward them for feedback. I think this is important that you will not select just the enthusiastic users, but regular users.
Okay, thank you very much, David Vávra.